Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you please rise for the pledge and get started. For allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On the agenda in Roman numeral 4, any questions on the agenda present at that time. And at the end, if you have a question or comment to offer, please feel free to do so. Keep it within a couple, 2 to 3 minutes as best you can. We have a relatively long executive session tonight. We'll move on to Mr. Brosdale's budget presentation. So, go down below.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me below for the budget presentation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our board meeting presentation budget in April. Tonight, the board must accept or reject the budget. So this is basically a review of what we presented in January, February, March. Now, what we broke this down to, you could see what last year's budget was, 61,769. I'm sorry, 2021. Then the next year, 21-22, 62,581. We're proposing 63,833,000, and that's a 2% budget hike. And what's driving that budget hike? We've listed on the board right below that. In January and February, we weren't talking about this. The world changed in March, and fuel prices, food costs, everything started going through the roof. But the main drivers, oil, budgeted last year, 165,000, this year 600,000. And we're hoping that that's pretty accurate guess, but once we get this budget voted on, it's the budget. Hopefully the summer doesn't bring more bad news. Electric, of course, related to the oil and energy, but last time we said the transportation contract was up, expired, and we've been lucky for around 20 years. This bus company, First Student, always would negotiate with us and wouldn't have to go to extend it and not negotiate. This year, with the gas prices, they say we have to negotiate. Last month, we really didn't know how tragic it was, but now we know for sure it's 10 to 15% higher than last year. So when you look at transportation, oil and electric, it's raising what would have been our budget, 0.31%. So this year would have been 162 instead of 2% if all this craziness wasn't happening. 0.31. Less. Okay, 0.30. All right. I'm sure you've seen in Newsday all the tons of extra aid we got. Everybody got tons of extra money, not necessarily so. And please look at the figures and you'll see why. Now foundation aid, yes, went on up an average 3% per district. Foundation aid did go up. But if you look, high cost aid, special ed is down. Then you have a difference in March's governor's presentation and what she told us in April. But look at transportation aid when we need it. It actually is down from what they said in March. If you look at high tax aid, that's about the same. Textbook, software, and library, that is down in April. When you look at the BOCES aid, that is down. So actually, compared to what the governor said we're going to get in March, if you look at the bottom line, we're getting less in the budget that we released last weekend. Okay? So all that money ain't necessarily so. All right, so I told you what the budget was compared to last year's 63,833, an increase of 2%. The tax levy allowed by New York State in the formula that they give us is 2.02. What all of this means, the end run is for the average home assessment, $17 a month increase, or roughly $204 additional a year per home, based on these numbers. Now normally, again, I mentioned this last time, we used to be able to go out 4 or 5 years out into the future based on our fund balance and what we had available. Not too long ago, that bottom line, there was an 8%. And we always said New York State allows you to have 4. Well, we worked our way down to 4 in 2021. We had 4 last year, but this year, with having to go out with a 2% increase, we had to appropriate more fund balance where we didn't want to go. Fund balance on the bottom, that's like our bank account. So more bank account had to be put in to balance our budget. So if you look at what we are next year in our fund balance, 2.58, it gets more tragic in 23-24 when it's 0.14. I've been here 8 years. I've never seen that. Never, not that low. But that's where we are. So that is our budget. I'll go back to it in a second. But there's a second part here, another proposition. Yes, we'll ask the community to vote on the budget. The second proposition we ask the community to vote on is the capital projects. Now, the biggest mistake the community makes is saying, I can't vote for that, it's going to raise my taxes. It's not. That money is already there. If some of you recall the bond that we proposed about 5 years ago, because we had many replacements and renovations needed, and it was not successful, those needs and renovations and repairs are still there. And I use the example in the middle school, because all of you probably experienced the air conditioning crisis we've had there. And now, boilers, middle school has 6, 3 work. You can fix things so many times until they can't be fixed anymore. And that's where we're getting. But Linda, my partner in crime, wisely, after that budget was not successful, squirreled money away each year because she knew those repairs were coming and they were a must. And there's no fluff up there, and I'll just quickly go over them. How much was she able to put away? $6 million. Now, to make something clear with a capital project, when we designate all of these renovations and repairs, we have to do that work. We can't say, I'm changing my mind, I'm putting up a new baseball field instead. That is the work, that is the money, the capital reserve. You cannot change, move money in or out of it. So, if you look at number 1 bullet, renovations, replacement, this is mainly AC and heat in all 3 buildings. Also, something we've had a major problem in here that's 30 years old. There's a computer management system that hasn't worked right, at least I know, 5 or 6 years. And the high school students could probably vouch for that. It covers the heat and air conditioning in each room. That needs to be replaced. So, heat, you can't have kids freezing in our elementary school, and AC is needed in the summertime. That's the first bullet. Second one, security, communications, health, and safety. Our cameras are old. Administrators rely on cameras for numerous things. An event, a child does something. There's a fight in the hallway. Someone gets really hurt. You've got to go to those cameras. And sometimes we pray that those cameras are able to photograph that event. And sometimes parents come in and say, I don't believe that happened, can't have it. It's nothing like being an administrator and turn on the video and show them, yes, it did. And in my career, I've had to do that numerous times. We need cameras, and we need new ones, and we need more in places that aren't covered. We have bottle filling stations, installed barriers and walkways. If a lot of you pull down this driveway towards the high school, you have the cafeteria in front of you, sitting right in front of that driveway. I would say 5 or 6 years ago, Rob Gray, when I walked the grounds, I think Scott might have been with us, with an FBI-trained Suffolk County police officer who was helping us do our safety plan. He goes, this is a disaster. Someone could come down that driveway and could drive right into that cafeteria. There's nothing blocking it. As well as mentioning shooting angles and positions. We had some tour that day on what we had to correct around the high school. But finally, we're putting barriers blocking that access to that cafeteria. And we're also putting in a walkway out of the cafeteria into the parking lot to make that more accessible. A security booth renovated in the middle school as safety. Replaced dual signs. This one on North Country Road, the electronic sign's pretty reliable. I call the one on 25A any given Sunday. Might work, might not. Most often, no. Again, where their stuff is old and we have to fix them and replace them. Key room sink. We have to replace the high school PA system. Now getting down to the bottom, this has been a bug of mine for a while in the third bullet, upgrading high school auditorium lighting. They just did a terrific play, if any of you saw it, Chicago. And the sad part is, for years, we have to rent a sound system and lighting because we can't use ours. If two people try to sing in our PA speakers, it's all distorted. And the lighting doesn't work. Now for them, I know the old price for the rental of the lighting in the PA was around 20 grand. That takes quite a profit from that club to have to do that. This room should be the jewel of the district. It's a beautiful room. We can use a little more lighting so we can see it. But we need a sound system. Mark and I are just monkeying with microphones for the board to be able to speak. There's no PA system. Remember we used to have board meetings in the middle school? There's no PA system there either. So these things have to be corrected, have to be fixed, and you should have a beautiful sound system in here and lighting in a room like this. So that's the third bullet. And also, if you know the old tennis court next to the gym, if you're looking from the parking lot, there was the original tennis court there 30 years ago. Massive cracks. Last month I likened it to a Godzilla movie. What if Godzilla come out of the concrete? But if you level that off and resurface it, it's multi-purpose. Phys ed classes, other classes can use that area. It's just sitting there wasted. Okay? And the softball backstop replacement. So these are the things, $6 million in a plan that is not costing the taxpayers any additional money. Your vote on this proposition is to simply say, you can spend it, you have it, you can spend it on these things that we need. And we need them. So, 4 propositions. The budget itself, a 2% increase, $63,833,470. The capital project, I just mentioned, and we couldn't print it enough that it's not going to cause any increase in taxes. The library, Comstock Port Jeff, you have nothing to do with that price. The library sets out those prices. Now the 4th proposition, This came about, now we don't make this happen, we can't say this is gonna happen, but with an increase of 10 or 15%, just like we do with academics and sports, and went back to January's program and February's program and cut, what could we not do without this year? Where could we save money? We did that. But then we get the hit in March, 10 to 15%. We said, is there anywhere, anything possible cut in transportation? Now, there is a possible cut because the maximum is 15 miles in New York State. We've been doing twice that at 29. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but the district's done it historically. If the community votes, and we can't do it ourselves, this takes a community vote, just like the capital project, to approve or disapprove that change. And what does that save us? Is it pennies? The total savings, if we did change that mileage, is $200,000. I agree with that. So that's what it is. But again, we as the board, district office cannot say, well, we're just going to do that. The community has to vote on that. The community has to vote on capital projects in the budget for propositions. And the thing about transportation, we figured you can't, if the community votes to change the mileage, we couldn't do it without notice. So that wouldn't take place until 23 or 24, not next year. It would be the year after. Now here's the thing about that. It gives people notice, and will things change? Will prices change? Will fuel change? Will it change the picture where we wouldn't have to do this? And we stay with what we've done historically with the mileage. So it gives us a year. But these are the four things the public will be voting on. We show this every year. You can look at what the voting was last year, especially compared to 2021 when we had almost 3,000 people vote, which was terrific. And last year we fell to 846 voters out of 10,000 possible voters. 846 out of 10,000 possible voters. And let's guess what age group votes the most? 60 and over. So we hope we have board seats open. We hope that there's more interest. We hope people come out and vote and make their vote count. And something we always try to mention, that I'll bet in 2021 we got some political attention in the area for those who run for office because we had almost 3,000 people vote. It can be nice to mount some politicians. Last year, if you're a politician, would you pay much attention to us if 846 people vote out of 10,000? I'm not thinking so. So we've said this year after year, we would love the community to come out and vote, especially on the capital project so we can get this place fixed. Remember, the newest building is 30 years old. The oldest building is almost 60 years old. Gotta have money to fix your house up. Okay? So this is where we are. The vote is May 17th. And we'll see what happens. Questions? Okay, thank you. Board members, please join me on the podium.
superintendent of the Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the March 15, 2022 regular meeting as submitted.
Any comments? May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Any questions on the agenda? Personnel. Ed, resignations. Would you mind doing 1 through 3, please?
Resignations. 1. Susan Skelly, School District Aide. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Susan Skelly, School District Aide, effective April 4th, 2022.
Thank you, Ed. May I have a second?
A second?
Pete, any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
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 Number 2, Ed.
Resignations. Number 2, Nicole Frati, Social Studies teacher. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Nicole Frati, Social Studies teacher, effective June 25th, 2022.
Thank you, Ed. May I have a second, please? Second. Paul, any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
And finally, 3, Ed.
Resignations. Number 3, Doreen Andrews, Office Assistant. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Doreen Andrews, Office Assistant, effective July 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Ed. May I have a second, please? Thank you, Ed. Marie. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Lisa, would you mind doing appointments 1 and 2?
Sure. Appointments, instructional, Daniel Garvey, science teacher, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Board of Education hereby approves the following probationary appointment for Daniel Garvey in the area of science, appointment date August 31st, 2022, expiration date August 30th, 2026, compensation is step 2, MA, certification is professional.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Garvey. Welcome. Number 2, please, Lisa.
Sure, number 2, Thomas Labriola, social studies teacher, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Board of Education hereby approves the following probationary appointment for Thomas Labriola in the area of social studies, appointment date August 31st, 2022, expiration date August 30th, 2026, compensation is step A, MA, certification is initial.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second, please? Second. Thank you, Paul. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Pete, number 3 and 4, please.
Number 3, April Murray, literacy teacher. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following probation appointment. April Murray, areas literacy, appointment date August 31st, 2022, expiration date August 30th, 2026, compensation step A, MA, certification status initial.
Thank you, Pete. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Ed. Number 4, Pete.
Number 4, Shana Parekha, social studies teacher. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following probationary appointment. Name of employee, Shana Parekha, area social studies, appointment date August 31st, 2022, expiration date August 30th, 2026, compensation step A, MA, certification status initial.
Thank you, Pete. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Comments? I'll add one. It's always wonderful to see a return of a graduate to come back to teach their school.
Bob, can I just make a comment?
Please, go right ahead.
I want to welcome Shana to the Mount Sinai community. Shana is a young woman who I started coaching when she was in 3rd grade. I'm very proud of her, who she is as a person. And I would ask Madam Secretary to please denote my abstention from the vote.
Pete? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Karen, second?
I second.
Pete, any comments? All those in favor, please indicate aye. Aye. And C, Anne Marie, would you mind doing appointments 1 and 2?
Sure. Appointments, non-instructional. Olivia Martin, substitute nurse, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Name of employee, Olivia Martin, in the area of substitute registered nurse. Appointment date, April 13th, 2022. Compensation, $150 a day.
Thank you, Anne Marie. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Aye. 2,
Brittany Frawley, School District 8, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Name of employee, Brittany Frawley, in the area of School District 8. Appointment date, April 11, 2022. Compensation, step 2.
Thank you, Anne Marie. May I have a second, please?
A second.
Thank you, Lisa. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye. Aye. Paul, 3 and 4, please.
William Moniz, substitute custodian. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Employee, William Moniz, area, substitute custodian. Appointment date, March 26th, 2022. Compensation, $16.25 an hour.
Thank you, Paul. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Number 4, please.
Spring coach. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following coaching appointments. Boys golf, Matt Dyeroff, replacing John Mees. Step 1. Boys lacrosse, Charles Fawnin, and volunteer.
Thank you, Paul. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Action items. Committee on Special Education, Karen.
Committee on Special Education resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education has no objections to the special education recommendations and approves the authorization of the funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed.
Thank you, Karen. May I have a second, please?
I second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Over to Roman numeral 7, action items, business. Pete, number 1.
District-wide capital projects, secret resolution. Whereas the Board of Education of Mount Sinai Union Free School District desires to embark on various ventilation, heating, cooling, public address, flooring, lighting, door, security, signage, and exterior site athletic improvement projects at Mount Sinai High School, Mount Sinai Middle School, and Mount Sinai Elementary School to be funded and capital budgets. Whereas the proposed projects at Mount Sinai High School, Mount Sinai Middle School, and Mount Sinai Elementary School are subject to classification under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA. And whereas in Section 617.5A, the SEQRA regulation defined the Type 2 actions to be actions that have no significant impact on the environment and require no further review under SEQRA. And whereas the scope of the proposed project has been examined by the Board of Education and has been found to fall within the action types that are included in the SEQRA Type 2 actions, specifically Section 617.5, subsection C, 2 and 10, which reads as follows. Routine activities such as maintenance or repair involving no substantial changes to an existing structure or facility and replacement, rehabilitation of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building or fire codes, unless such action meets or exceeds any of the thresholds in Section 617.4 of this part, and routine activities of educational institutions, including the expansion of existing facilities by less than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area and school closings, but not changes in use related to such closings. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares itself lead agency in connection with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares that the proposed project is Type 2's action, which requires no further review under SEQRA. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby shall forward an official copy of this resolution to the New York State Education Department, together with a copy of the correspondence from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historical Preservation in connection with its request for approval of the listed projects from the New York State Education Department.
Thank you, Pete. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Good. Any comments? Just to add, this is an application to the state. This is not a community approval. Our vote, yes or no, is for this application, and that we are confirming that this meets the secret requirements based on what we've been provided. The capital project reserve is a separate vote by the community. Any other comments? All in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
And Marie, number 2.
Number 2, revised notice of budget hearing, budget vote, and election. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the publication of the revised notice of budget hearing, budget vote, and election for the May 17, 2022 annual meeting as attached.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Karen, number 3.
Proposition 1, 2022-23 school district budget. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition budget to be voted upon at the May 17, 2022 annual meeting. Shall the proposed budget of expenditures of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District for the fiscal year 2022-23 in the amount of $63,833,407,000 for the purposes shown in the statement thereof presented to, and at the budget hearing of said school district be approved, and the amount therefore thereof raised by levy of the tax upon the taxable property within said school district. Second, first, deducting the money available from state aid and other sources as provided by law.
Thank you, Karen. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Ed, number 4, proposition 2.
Proposition 2, library services. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition, library services, to be voted upon at the May 17, 2022 annual meeting. Resolved that for the purpose of enabling the people of this district to have the benefit of library services, the Board of Education of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District shall contract with the Comstock Public Library and the Port Jefferson Public Library for library services starting July 1st, 2022 and running through June 30th of 2023 in the amount of $1,842,882. A tax is hereby voted in such amount to be levied upon the taxable property of the district.
Thank you, Ed. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye. Number 5, Paul, proposition 3.
Proposition 3, capital improvement project. Whereas the Board of Education of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District Board has determined that there is a need to undertake certain capital improvements, renovations, and/or alterations to commence during the 2022-23 school year. And whereas the board desires that a proposition be presented to the voters of the school district authorizing the expenditure of available funds from the district's capital reserve fund for that purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes and directs that the following proposition be placed before the voters of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District at the annual district meeting to be conducted on May 17th, 2022, and that the district clerk be hereby authorized and directed to give notice of such proposition to be voted at said annual district meeting by publishing a notice thereof the requisite number of times. Shall the Board of Education of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District be authorized to appropriate and expend from the Capital Reserve Fund established on May 15th, 2018, an amount not to exceed $6 million for the purpose of undertaking school building improvement projects as described in a plan prepared by the district with the assistance of H2M to commence during the 2022-23 school year. All of the site work required in connection therewith, including preliminary costs, site work, and costs incidental to the renovation replacement, shall be authorized.
Thank you, Paul. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Number 6, Lisa.
Number 6, Proposition 4, non-public maximum transportation mileage limit. Resolved that the district clerk is hereby authorized to promulgate, I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied tonight, and notice the following proposition be submitted to the district's electorate at the annual meeting to be conducted on May 17th, 2022. Resolved that the Mount Sinai Union Free School District reduces the current 29.5 miles maximum transportation limit for non-public school transportation to resident students to the 15 miles maximum transportation limit statutorily provided at Education Law, Section 3635, effective with the 2023-24 school year.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anne Marie, number 7.
Number 7, real property tax report card. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the real property tax report card prepared by the district business office for the 2022 annual district meeting, and be it further resolved that a copy of said report card shall be submitted to the state education department by the end of the next business day following this approval.
Thank you, Anne Marie. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye. Aye.
Aye.
Number 8, Karen, unused snow day.
Unused snow day, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby designates Friday, May 27th, 2022 as an official school closing day and unused snow day for students and teachers in order to comply with professional standard reading.
Thank you, Karen. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead. Any comments? All of you who have attended the meeting, you probably go home and tell all of your friends that that's another day off. All in favor indicate aye. Aye. Pete, notice of hearing and disciplinary charge.
Resolved that the attached notice of hearing disciplinary charges are to be served against the named employee. The charges are to be deemed preferred by the Board of Education, and that Ann Leahy, attorney at law, is designated as a hearing officer to conduct the civil service law proceeding 75 as per the terms of the notice.
Thank you, Pete. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Ed, 10, obsolete equipment.
Obsolete equipment, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and authorizes disposal as listed.
May I have a second? Thank you, Anne Marie. Any comments? All in favor indicate aye.
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 Thank you. We have 2 questions. One, what are the plans for the high school library? I think Pete and Scott are here, and Christina. Would you be able to just give a quick summary of what the plans are and what changes are being made to the library?
Sure.
Sorry to put you
Can I
on the
get a little
spot.
more specifics on who asked that question? Just what do you mean plans? We just created basically 2 different spaces, and one was actually in room 309, but because of where the location was, we felt it was getting underutilized. We moved that furniture up to the back atrium. That used to be a computer lab. Because we have the one-to-one initiative now, we don't really need computer labs. So that's one part that was changed, and the other part was a student lounge, which was a wish list item from the student government. Coming back from COVID, the students had asked for an area where they can go and use the time to study. Unfortunately, we used the library for our AP exams, so I didn't want the students to lose that space for over 2 weeks. And then with it being towards the end of the year, we felt that the rotunda area in the cafeteria was a nice spot to have that furniture moved to, because we have to utilize the library for AP administration. Other than that, if you'd like, whoever asked the question, feel free to give me a buzz. We will have some more upgrades, but like Mr. Prosdale said, money's a little tight. We try to do what we can with what we're given in the budget. We are creating a Zoom meeting area with a big screen TV, things like that, just as we adapt to all the different technologies. But for now, that's pretty much it. So,
Thank you. Thank you for jumping on that.
Yep.
Next question is there a process for a formal request to get a monitor on a school bus?
Monitor on a school bus?
So we have to go through, special ed.
Well, the point they're raising is that they've had some issues on an elementary school bus, and possibly this type of question, if you could call Linda, who takes care of the transportation, tomorrow if you have time, and speak to her directly. She's in charge of transportation. Is that be all right, Linda?
That, or I wonder if Mr. Catlin, the elementary school principal, has been informed.
He has,
He has?
yes.
So speak with Linda in terms of that and the process. She's in charge of the buses above everybody else. Thank you. JP, our student, has a short report.
The students at Mount Sinai have been very busy this past month. With spring sports in full swing, students are excited to be attending games and meets to support their friends and fellow Mustangs. At the end of March, the members of the student body were very excited to attend the Battle of the Educators basketball game put on by the Booster Club. There was a great turnout and everyone had a blast, and it was great to be back after 2 years without the event. The high school drama club put on a phenomenal performance in their musical production of Chicago. The drama club put on three performances, and each night was well attended by many members of the community, and it was amazing to watch. It was great to see all the hard work put in by the members of the cast and the pit orchestra, and see it pay off. Chicago was a huge hit. We've continued to visit the middle school to get regular updates from the students there, and they've indicated that they're very excited about this week's Spirit Week and their upcoming spring socials. Students in both the high school and the middle school are excited about the special and celebratory events at the end of this year. With regards to school lunches, I'm happy to say that students in the high school have noticed significant improvements with the food. Our food service provider has been bringing in new staff and special guest chefs to increase both the variety and the quality of the food being offered. Students in middle school have also noticed these changes, but still have some concerns that we've been working with the district's food coordinator to address. A subcommittee of the district's Health and Wellness Committee met this month in the middle school to address the topics of school lunch and mental health with students from each school. This meeting offered the opportunity for me to hear from some elementary school students and staff regarding their concerns with school meals. We're continuing to work with the food service provider to meet all of these concerns. They've been really receptive to our feedback and have been very helpful, and they'll soon be working with us this month actually to form a more active school lunch committee to gain feedback and ideas from students. This Health and Wellness Subcommittee meeting also brought up the topic of mental health and the resources that the school offers to its students. Some students in the meeting were unaware of certain services and resources that existed. They may not have known where to go or who to talk to when they needed help, things like that. So we'll be working with the school social workers on ways to raise awareness in the schools this month. Overall, this month has been pretty productive for the students. We're looking forward to the warmer weather and to a fun end of the school year. And I look forward to continuing to work with members of the school community, including students, board members, administrators, and teachers to represent the needs and wants of the student body. Thank you.
I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive session then.
So moved.
All in favor, indicate aye. Aye.